Thanks for tuning in to Look at My JPEG, the podcast that discusses NFT, DeFi, and NFT financialization. This is your host, Xerox Jose, the founder of nftperp. The reason why I want to do this podcast is because there's just not enough people talking about NFT financializations. In this podcast, you can expect us to invite guests that are builders, founders, even investors that are deep in the NFT financialization space. We'll discuss their story, what they're building, and how you can get involved. So thanks for tuning in. Welcome to the show. Xerox, how do I pronounce this? Xerox?
OX2T, yeah.
OX2D. Great to have you, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on to the show.
Thanks for the invitation.
I guess we can jump right into it. How have you guys been? What's going on with JPEG'd? Are you guys enjoying the bear market? There's not a ton of stuff happening in NFT finance, but hey, we're here to stick around and keep building, right?
Yeah, I must say we had a pretty adventurous summer. So right now it's not so bad that there's a bit less happening, I must say. But we managed to recover from those adventures, and then we're basically back. So that's pretty good.
Oh, you're referring to the event, which we'll get to later on in a little bit. Yeah, thanks for coming on. Before we dive in, I'd love to know, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into crypto? What was your first NFT purchase?
So I'm OX2T. I'm product designer at JPEG'd. I got interested in crypto very early on, but never invested or did anything. There was this guy that I knew that had been talking to me about some sort of gold deal that you could do with African countries. That was dodgy as hell. And then a little bit later, a couple of months later, he basically told me about digital gold. And that was, 2009-ish, and it was Bitcoin.
Oh, wow.
I almost installed a miner, but then ended up not to. Forward this a couple of years later, it was 2017, bought a bit of ETH, bought a bit of XRP, instantly did a 4x or more, thought I was a genius, discovered XRP was super dodgy, managed to sell the top, probably the only time. My best trade since forever. And then bought a ton of other shit coins that all went to zero. Lost interest in 2018. And then basically when 2020 arrived, I had all those Twitter accounts still in my feed that were talking about uni, about Link, about Maker, about all this kind of stuff that I didn't really quite understand. And then the bull run started. I kind of totally missed it, so entered pretty late on there. But then I made myself a promise that I would not lose interest the next time. And for that, the best way of doing it was to basically work in the field, because then I'm basically having to follow it, and I get paid for it. So and then here we are. I joined JPEG really early on, and have been on the team ever since.
Hell yeah! Cheers to sticking around.
Yeah, I mean that's the way, right? That's what we all saw in 2020, where you had all the people who had stuck around that managed to get out in was Brio, or so I hope for most of them.
No, in sports they say like the best ability is availability. That's just being around. I think that's like one of the core, really the best thing you can do in crypto is like don't leave. Like no matter what happens, just stick around, keep an eye on for different opportunities, be open-minded, and keep learning.
Yeah.
So cheers to that. So what was how many people are on the team? What was like sort of the origin story?
So I'm not the one who started JPEG. I'm not one of the founders. The founders are DeFi Gods and NFT Duck. They came up with the idea, and basically I joined yeah, early on, as they were looking to get a UI built, a graphic identity, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I hopped in. So I don't know the exact story of the genesis of it, but
Yeah.
generally, I think the idea was that there were no NFT lending protocol at the time, if at all. I think I think a bit later there's probably NFTFi that started that was doing peer to peer, but DeFi God being DeFi God, he also had, I think, a lot of ideas on how to leverage DeFi for NFTs, and NFTs was DeFi. So basically, they set up to design the protocol, and they base themselves on the same mechanics as MakerDAO, where basically users can deposit an NFT, and then against the value of this collateral, they mint a synthetic asset. In the case of MakerDAO, it's DAI. In the case of JPEG'd, it's either PETH or PUSD,
Yeah.
which are synthetic assets that can be swapped afterwards.
Yeah. And you guys were, yeah, were you guys technically the first one then? Like the first
I,
lending and borrowing protocol?
I'm not exactly sure. I must say I don't remember because it was so intense then, but we're
Yeah.
still the only one offering this model as far as I know. So there are different
Like
models.
MakerDAO is. Yeah.
We do peer-to-protocol lending, and
Yeah.
then others do either peer-to-pool, which is more based like on the Avi model or Aave.
Yeah.
I never know how to pronounce it. Um, and then there's
Yeah.
like peer-to-peer services like NFTFi and others.
Yeah, 100%. And then there's like a whole bunch of different iterations of it
Yeah, yeah.
afterwards as well. Yeah, that's really interesting. Um, just going sidetracked a little bit, I also see that you worked at Olympus DAO.
Yeah, yeah, I'm still giving a hand there as well.
Nice. Are you still working there right now?
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Well, off topic. We'll get to that a little bit.
Yeah, I've worked
So
I've worked
JPEG.
for a couple of protocols in DeFi.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. So did you do the product design, like also like the UX for JPEG as well?
Yeah, I did all the UX and UI for JPEG, both iterations.
I
The
love it.
the completely degen pixelated one, and the newer, cleaner one, less degen one.
Both amazing. I love them both.
Thanks.
Good work. Um, let's talk about JPEG as a protocol. So you kind of gave the introduction a little bit, and the keyword was really MakerDAO. And yeah, you're right. There's really no other NFT lending and borrowing protocols, even though there's been 20 different iterations of it in terms of NFT lending and borrowing since you guys launched. That really have followed the MakerDAO and JPEG type of peer-to protocol type of model where you're actually minting synthetic ETH and USD and like these essentially stable coins and ETH that's backed by NFTs type of type of protocols that come out. So tell us a little bit more about like how the protocol works fundamentally. What makes JPEG like different outside of the PETH and PUSD compared to other lending and borrowing protocols?
Sure. So perhaps first of all the mechanics, and to also jump on your comment of why there are no other protocols like us. I think one of the things that are needed to be able to start the way we started is you need to be able to bootstrap the first pools. And for this, you need to have a solid treasury and to have means to incentivize that pool somehow, right? The route that we went was to try not to dilute token holders. And instead, what we've done is that we've acquired quite a large amount of CVX, and we're using Curve as a means for users to swap their PUSD or the synthetics for their equivalents, a bit in the same way that Maker does. And then we're basically voting on those pools, so they have very high CRV and CVX rewards.
Mm.
So that's the first thing, I think, and this is why it's a bit exceptional. We're one of the few protocols that has such a solid treasury and access to such tools, right?
Yeah.
We're basically kind of like a wave, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then about how it works. So it's like a lot of NFTfi protocols. Users deposit an NFT in the vault. They select the kind of assets that they want to borrow, and then they select the amount that they want to borrow. And then basically they mint that synthetic asset. When they need to repay their debt, they deposit those synthetics and then burn them basically and get them out. What I think is a bit special in this case is that we offer fixed term rates. So basically we offer the lowest lending rate on the market, more or less. There are some peer-to-peer deals that can happen. So it's 2% on stablecoin and it's 5% on ETH. And this is fixed, so it doesn't move.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we've also introduced a few perks. So the base LTV is pretty high. It's, for example, 60% for Punk and 60% for BYCs, and then it goes a bit lower than that. But we also introduced a couple of mechanics, such as the cigarette boost, which is related to NFT collections that we released called the JPEG cards. And some of those cards have a cigarette attribute. If you lock a cigarette card, then you get a boost, an LTV boost across all your positions of 10% extra. So that means that if you are borrowing with your Punk at 60%, you get up to 70%.
Yeah.
And liquidation happens 10% after that, so it's 80%. And you can do the same, but not across all your positions and per position for an individual position by locking the JPEG token, which is also the token that is used to govern the protocol.
Yeah.
And you can also do something a bit special, and I think we were the first one to introduce that, is what we call traits boosting. So for NFTs that have traits that are rare, right, and that are valued above market rate, then you can also lock JPEG, and then you get a boost on the floor price. So, for example, if you have a zombie Punk, you can get 10 times the floor, right?
Yeah.
And that means you have a higher credit limit and you can borrow more.
Gotcha. Yeah. These are really like some of the features that I think is incredibly fun. It's almost like a game where you have like these different. I've recently been off topic, but I've recently purchased a emulator that allows you to play like retro handheld games like Pokemon even.
Yeah.
And you know what? When you're playing Pokemon, you have all these different cards or different items you can pair your Pokemon with. So when you go to battle, you have these like different type of additional features, additional like power boost and all that you can play with. So I love the fact that you guys have these cigarette boosts that allows you to kind of play with different type of additional features when you're going through this ballering experience.
Yeah, I think that was the idea behind all those different mechanics. The founders are cheeky.
Yeah, it's incredibly entertaining going through like the process of borrowing on JPEG. I've borrowed stuff on the platform before. So talk to us a little bit about liquidation. So how does it work? What do borrowers need to be on the lookout for? And when the liquidation actually happens, what happens underneath the hood?
Right. So one very important thing. So all the collections are using Chain Oracle to monitor the floor prices. So basically, yeah, we're following all the market movements, and that's the first thing that users need to be on the lookout for. So the UI shows them the potential liquidation price. It shows them the health of their position, and obviously, if the health dropped below the LTV, so if they don't have a boost, that would be 70%. If they have a LTV boost, that would be 80%. Then the position gets liquidated. when a position gets liquidated, what happens is that the NFT gets put on auction, and the auction closes at the latest 23 hours and 59 minutes after that. So we have 2 rounds of auctions happening. They either finish at noon or at midnight UTC.
Got it.
Depending on when the asset got liquidated.
Yeah. So the asset is, because it's peer to protocol. So technically the NFT is, when the liquidation happens, right? The NFT essentially belongs to the protocol, and then
so the debt gets repaid by the protocol, and then the NFT gets auctioned by the protocol as well.
Got it. So the debt repaid. The protocol has some amount of it could be JPEG, it could be the PETH or
it's PETH or PUSD, exactly.
Yeah. So the protocol will essentially pay to itself. So is it burning then?
Yes.
Okay.
The assets get burned as well.
Got
anytime debt is repaid, it basically gets burned.
Got it. Okay. And then like to make up for the actual net value, you have an auction so the outsiders can come in and give the treasury. Are they auctioning? Is it in ETH or is it in PETH again?
No, the auctions are always in ETH. Although I'd have to check because it's been a very long time we didn't have an auction in USD, but I'm pretty sure the auctions are always in ETH. And what happens is at the end of the auction, they get extended, right? If every time there's a higher bid at the end, so they get extended by 5 minutes, and the next bid has to be 1% higher than the previous one. So that also creates kind of a battle and gamification at the end of the auctions. At the beginning, the auctions were much longer, and then we would see everyone come in at the very end. So then we realized, that we could make them shorter. Everyone would arrive at the very end anyway. So.
What is the price, like starting bid start from?
So the starting bid starts at the debt price.
Oh, so you're covering debt as soon when the bids essentially start happening, and then So what does a premium go to?
It depends on the assets. It could be a rare NFT, and then it could be quite a lot, or then it could just go for floor. We've seen.
Yeah, but if the bids start at the debt amount, then you essentially have a surplus, right? Like auction.
So basically, let's take the example of a punk, right? Punk would get liquidated without any boost. It would get liquidated at 70%. So we have 30% margin that we get.
Got it. And then the protocol essentially
the protocol
makes money off of the premium.
Yeah. And one thing that's also important is that we've introduced also mechanics to protect the users from liquidations, such as an insurance that is optional and that users can take on when they open their first loan. So basically, they can insure themselves against liquidation. Let me explain what that means. So they can insure themselves by paying 2% of their debt, and then if a liquidation occurs, they have 48 hours to repay their debt and to get their NFT back. So it wouldn't get auctioned within those first 48 hours.
So when the user wants to purchase an insurance, what do they pay? Do they pay in PUSD? They're paying JPEG tokens?
They pay in the debt currency that they are taking. So basically, let's say you borrow 100 PETH, then there would be 2 PETH that you don't get directly in your wallet, right? Their first borrow would only give you 98.
Okay, yeah, that's relatively reasonable and pretty cheap.
I mean, that's pretty reasonable, and we've seen quite a lot of users use it, and they've been quite happy to have that. And one thing that we've also introduced is a Telegram notification bot, so people can subscribe to the bot, and they can add as many addresses as they want to that bot, and then it monitors the floor prices and all the positions. It warns you if there's been a sudden drop. It also warns you if a position is at risk. And it also warns you or tells you when a position has been liquidated.
Okay. And in the process of all of this, are JPEG tokens involved in the borrowing or the trade boosting mechanics overall?
So yeah, the JPEG token is as I said before, you can boost trades and LTV by depositing this cigarette card, which is an NFT, or you can also do it the same but per position by locking JPEG tokens.
Got
And
it.
in the case of a liquidation that is boosted, the JPEG tokens are forfeited; they get burned.
They get burned.
Yeah,
Understood. Okay. Super interesting. Thanks for walking me through that.
yeah, it's a lot of little things.
Yeah, but it's fun to see it kind of all tied together. And tell us a little bit more about. I personally don't know a bunch about it, but I read it on the docs, so I'll just kind of go and ask. What is the JPEG index in iJPEG?
iJPEG. So the JPEG index and iJPEG is kind of an experimentation. The idea was to create a basket of assets following a donation event, and then this basket of assets then the donation event we got a bunch of ETH, and that ETH was then spent to acquire NFTs. NFTs that are supported by the platform, and then they have been in deposit on the vault in a non-liquidatable vault, and then basically there was a vote from the DAO, and every donator got airdropped the equivalent of their donation in iJPEG, which is the iJPEG token, which represents a part of this basket of assets. In there is a CryptoPunk, there's a BYC, there's a Fidenza, a Ringer, and a Zuki, if I remember well.
Are these like mostly floor NFTs?
Those are all floor NFTs. There might be the idea of getting a zombie punk at some point, but yeah, that's still completely in the air, and then would probably need some new donation event, and we'll see how that goes. But I think this also is important for me to introduce one of the key proposals of JPEG is that those assets, right, they're part of a basket. So there's one thing where you can't afford the punk, you can't afford the BYC, and then basically you're getting a share of this index of NFTs. But what's more interesting is that one of the features of JPEG is that users can borrow those synthetic assets, right, PETH and PUSD. But more specifically with PETH, what happens with PETH is that they can then LP this PETH with wrapped ETH on Curve. And then, as I said earlier, because we're one of the largest convex holders, we're voting on that PETH wrapped ETH pool, and it's giving pretty decent APR. So 12 or 13% right now in CRV and CVX rewards.
Yeah.
And so all the assets that are in the index, they are borrowed against, and they are also farming the CVX and CRV rewards. So effectively, when you get iJPEG, you also get staking rewards from that.
It's all a liquidity game.
Yes. And it's all built on Curve, right? Also.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's one of the most I think it's one of those, like, when I look at JPEG and how you guys think about the liquidity game and how you think about utilizing treasury as a buying power to vote for liquidity, and I'm sure, like, do you guys also like accept bribes as well on Convex?
Well, we're the ones voting, so we use all our voting power for our pools.
For your own pools.
So we can't really get bribes.
Yeah. Okay. That's very interesting. So maybe, and this is something we can cover quickly. I know you mentioned that the summer was like a pretty adventurous summer. Good segue into there is a lot of good things about composability, and I think you guys were one of the most well thought out and really utilizing like DeFi composability to its full potential type of protocol out there. So hats off to you guys for that. I think you guys were one of the most, like, quote unquote, like, composable NFT finance protocols out there that I've talked to, right? And we talked to like what 30, 40 different protocols at this point running this podcast. There's a good and bad, right? And the bad is dependencies, contract risks. So tell us a little more about like what happened during summer.
So yeah, so basically, Curve is, I still think to this day, one of the most battle-tested contracts out there.
Mhm. Sure.
It was also, or it still is probably, I haven't looked at the numbers recently, but one of the contracts that had the highest TVL as well, with the most assets, and it was, I believe it still is one of the most trusted contracts there is. Unfortunately, someone discovered a compiler error in the contract for some pools that were created by using a certain version of the compiler.
Yeah, it was
But
Viper. Yeah.
yeah, so basically, so yes, Viper, but it's like one of the specific versions of Viper, and only during, like, I think in total there were 4 pools that could be affected, and then at the same time it needed to be pools that were created, but also that were using ETH as collateral, or ETH as the second pair instead of wrapped ETH.
Right. So it's very specific.
So I mean, it flew under the radar of thousands of hackers. I think they probably were trying to get their hands on all the value that is on Curve. Unfortunately, the old PETH ETH pool was victim to this hack. And so what happened is that the hacker tried to exploit the pool, got front ran by a person having an MEV bot, and then that person gave us back or transferred the fund back to the treasury, minus 10% white hat
Oh,
bounty,
that's
basically.
nice.
That it was an extremely stressful moment, I must say. We all spent tons of hours awake trying to figure out what it was. All became on-chain forensic specialists overnight. Also saw a lot of bad takes online and on Twitter, but ultimately we got the assets back, and then there was a big question also of how to redistribute them, because as you said, composability also comes with complexity
Yeah.
as well. So then we had to spend quite a lot of time going through all the transactions, all the positions of everyone, offer all the different restitution options to the DAO, and then ultimately it was voted for one of the different redistribution options. And then yeah, we managed to give the funds back to pretty much everyone, and
Congratulations.
then reboot the whole project and the whole protocol.
Yeah, that's a win for sure.
That's a mega win. I must say, when it actually all happened and it was all over, like I think it took us a bit of time to realize, and then
Yeah.
I think a week or two after having dispersed all the funds and being like, yeah, actually everyone is back in order, we can reopen all the votes, everything is fine. Then that's the moment when the pressure was lifted.
Yeah.
But it's I feel blessed, to be honest, to be working in the team, because everyone is really mega chat level.
Yeah. No, that's definitely a win for sure. In terms of how teams respond to like crisis situations, like tells you their ability to kind of work together and steer through different like tough
But
events.
it's the same with your partner, right? I mean, when everything is fine and rosy and dandy, then it's super easy. It's the moment when someone is having a bad day or going through something difficult. This is when you see where
Yeah.
if you actually can stick together and go through out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, cool. I think we're going through a lot, and this has honestly been turned out to be one of my favorite episodes that we've done so far. So appreciate you kind of going through all that with us. So what's going on with JPEG right now? What are some of the new things you guys are
So
experimenting
with
or
JPEG,
working
there's
on?
a couple of things that we're working on. There's a pool lending service that we've been working on for a while, and yeah, hopefully that's something that will see the light of the day. And then there's also an NFT perp service
Mm.
that we're also working on.
Yeah.
Um, And then we'll see also how that sees the light of the day. So this is what we're working on right now, and otherwise improving our infrastructure, improving our security. Always, I don't think you can sleep on that ever.
Sure.
And yeah, basically trying to figure out what to do of our treasury as well, making sure that that one is secure, also being made productive, and yeah, keep on improving also the UX. I think one of the things that made JPEG attractive for some users was that, especially large users, when they were going to other platforms, they were having to manage multiple positions one by one. And that was very time intensive. Probably some of them then asked someone to build a bot or something for them.
Mm-hmm.
But what we've done is we've integrated that aspect in the UX. So large users can really basically manage many positions, hundreds of them, in one click if they want to.
Mm.
So improving the UX, making sure that it's cleaner, more easy to understand, more of a game as well, so that it's funnier.
Yeah. Really exciting. We, obviously nftperp closed down its V1 almost 3 months ago now. And we're trying to push for V2. There's a lot of, a lot of things that you need to work on when you push out this sort of like high risk, high reward type of protocol, right? Because you can generate a ton of volume.
It's a tough nut to crack.
It is a tough nut to crack, and we try to crack it, and I think we cracked it a little too hard in the first try, and but we're excited. V2's contractually they're done. We're going through, hoping to launch it relatively soon, and we're looking forward to having more players in the same vertical that we're in. So there's different strategies that market makers and traders can play with decent amount of liquidity. So I think it's sort of one of those like rising tide really all boats kind of situation.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're really
we also need the market to pick up a bit, I guess, to have some more volume.
That's
that would help as well.
That's the that's the hope, right?
That's a conviction we have, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So cheers to that.
But yeah, that's where we're at. And then obviously there's also other ideas that are floating around. The index experiment was a very interesting one. And yeah, we're always on the lookout for new strategies and basically trying to find ways so that NFT holders can use the value of their NFTs and make something out of it rather than just holding. So make the assets really productive in a way.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think you guys have done really just that in terms of like allowing users to really unlock their idled NFT value. So yeah, Alex, Judy, thanks for coming on. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you very much for having me. And looking forward to your V2 as well. I'm curious to see it.
All right. Thank you. I'll talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to Look at My JPEG podcast. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your audio podcast from, give us a like, a subscribe if you like the content, and we'll see you in the next episode.